So if there's one concept that has changed my life more than anything else on the whole personal development journey over the course of thousands of hours of videos I watch, over the course of thousands of books I've read since 2010, 12-ish when I got into personal development, it's this one concept that I share with you in this video, and it is all about understanding that when you shift your identity, when you shift how you think, feel, and act, when the way you see yourself, when you shift that, it creates a completely new reflection in your life. And I'm going to show you in this video step by step how to shift your identity. And I believe that if you look back in like 6 months from now and you apply what I share with you in this video, you'll see that you live in a completely new reality because you have completely shifted your energy from the inside out. Now, first off, let me say some of the sources that I've learned some of this information from, just so you know this isn't just my intellectual ideas of coming up with it. It's things that have actually applied in my life. And if you look to the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, he talks a lot about that of identity, of looking at like who you are being, the energy state that you're in. There's a book that's a classic book called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. It's a book that was from a plastic surgeon that noticed that when people were getting their face and all this work done on their body, they didn't really actually become happier unless they changed their inner self-image. And what he realized is that there's an inner self-image that we all have that we do anything we can to remain consistent to. Now, this also, Bob Proctor is another person that teaches this about understanding the identity shifting. And what I've done is I've studied all these different versions of it and compiled it into this one easy understanding that I think you'll remember for a very long time. And if you start to apply it, it changes absolutely everything. So, first off, I learned about psycho-cybernetics when I was working a job selling women's shoes at Nordstrom's back in like 2011 and 12 was when I really started learning about the law of attraction. And one of the biggest changes I had is when I realized and became aware of my old self-image, where my old self-image selling women's shoes was that I was a mediocre sales employee, because every day we went into work, we could see on a list who were the top salespeople from the day before, who didn't sell as much, and that was like, it was a commission-based job. And I learned and read the book Psycho-Cybernetics, and I became aware and asked myself the question, what is my self-image? How do I see myself? And I realized that every day I went into work, I saw myself as the middle of the list. Not really at the top too often. I wasn't a top salesperson from the day before, but I also wasn't one of the bottom. I was like, okay, I'm an average, mediocre salesperson. And I then learned about this book. I read it, and I started asking myself, well, how would the version of me think, feel, and act that is that of the top salesperson? And when I looked at that version of me, I could use my imagination to imagine and be like, okay, that version of Aaron greets every single customer that comes into the department. I greet everybody. I don't just greet people I think are going to buy shoes. I greet everybody. Then I realized that there was a certain way I carried myself. I had even a different body language as that version of me. I had a way of interacting. I gave better customer service. When I was wrapping up their shoes and stuff, I did it with care, and I put like tissue over. This little stupid thing I used to do is I used to put tissue in the bag with the shoes. I'd put tissue over it. And it was something so small, but none of my other coworkers did it. And I knew that at the end of the sale, after they've already bought and I give them the shoe bag, it was like they remembered that. And I would do these little things like that. And there was, I remember when I learned about this whole identity thing, I went into work and I started being this version of me. I started carrying myself that way. I started greeting more customers. I started having a more positive attitude. I started doing all these things. And within a few days, I was consistently at the top of that list because I started to see myself as a top salesperson. I started to model the body language of a top selling person. I started to literally embody those emotions, those energies. And then very quickly, that became my new norm. And years later, I then used that instead of just being a salesperson working a job I don't like, I started using that to become a full-time YouTuber. So what I did is I started to model the thoughts, feelings, and actions of that version of me. And I started to literally be it. Within 6 months, it was my dominant reality. And the important part I want you to understand here as well is, so psycho-cybernetics, and Tony Robbins talks about this too, that one of the strongest human desires there is to remain consistent to the way that we define ourselves. And I've seen this firsthand, by the way, with some people. Like I have a friend recently who was vegan for a long time, And then this person is now not vegan anymore. But it was such a strong motivational force for this person to shift from vegan to now eating like healthy organic meats and stuff like that, because they identified so much with the belief system, the values of I was vegan for so long, this is who I am, I feel so guilty. And then it was like this, I could just tell it was such a big thing. And one of the reasons, because they defined themselves for so long as being this kind of way. And one of the things to become aware of is, what is your self-image? And whether it's that or like some other area of your life. You know, sometimes people for a long time, I had the self-image of having a 9-to-5 job. And I wanted to not be in a 9-to-5 job, but it was very hard for me to shift that because the 9-to-5 job felt so familiar, comfortable, and I was so used to it. Now here's the like metaphor and the diagram that I think will completely change the way that you look at this whole entire process. All right, so this right here, think of this as your identity. Your identity is that of how you think, act, and feel, and also has your values in it. Your values are like things that are important to you. When I started to value like being on YouTube, I started valuing expressing myself. I started to value like working for myself, being self-motivated. And that value then allowed me to be like, I changed my sense of identity. Now, think of your identity as your comfort zone. Your identity is your comfort zone. And the thing and the reason a lot of people don't shift their identity is they are afraid of expanding their comfort zone. Now, here's the thing. You're not leaving your comfort zone. You're expanding it. Your comfort zone is kind of like a box. And if you're acting, thinking, feeling, and you're only remaining consistent and like you're living reality equal to this identity, you're going to stay in this reality. And maybe that's fine. Maybe you don't want to shift your identity because you're perfect where you are. But my guess is if you watched a video on how to shift your identity, you probably want to know how to shift your identity because you would like a new reflection in your life. So one of the things that I had to do, and for a long time, by the way, I also had the identity of having ADHD. Because I took Adderall growing up and I was told that by a doctor, and it was like, this is the way that I get through ADHD. I have to take this prescription pill. I drink 4 shots of espresso and I calm down. Had the opposite effect on me. And I had to become aware of this identity, and then I also reframed it. I saw myself as someone with a lot of energy, and I would ground myself in grass and do like things like that. And it allowed me to then let go of taking Adderall back in 2012. So you get in life a reflection of who you are being. Who you are being is that of enclosed within your identity of how you define yourself. So the labels, also a lot of labels you'll have will be in here. Sometimes people, part of their identity is I'm better single. I'm a single person, and it's just easier that way. Well, guess what? You're not going to expand to attracting love if you identify with that story. Some of the stories are also within your identity. Some of us may have a painful past, and then we think that now in the present moment it also has to be painful because it's an echo of that experience. So think about this though, the money and the love that you are intending for or desiring, all you have to do is expand your comfort zone to include these things. So they're very close to you. You just have to expand it. The only thing that's keeping you from it is your current identity, it's your current comfort zone. You're thinking, acting, and feeling equal to that. So what you want to do is you want to become aware of what your comfort zone is. What is your comfort zone? How are you thinking, feeling, and acting? And normally in life, you're getting a direct reflection. You can look around to see what that reflection is. Sometimes it's a little bit easier to see than others. But like when I was working that 9-to-5 job selling women's shoes, I was like, okay, my identity here is that I believe that I'm only worthy of working a 9-to-5 job. My work ethic is that of working a 9-to-5 job I don't like. I have accepted this as like something I have to do. I have a label of being a 9-to-5 job goer. These were all things I became aware of. And once I became aware of it, that's when I then shifted it. I made the choice to make daily videos on YouTube. And that changed everything. That's why that's there, is because I was focused on expressing myself, adding value, putting that out, expressing my comfort, or expanding my comfort zone. And there's a couple different ways to expand your comfort zone, but really all it is, it's a choice that you make. You make a choice that's not going to feel comfortable. A lot of times, because it's comfort zone, it'd feel comfortable if it was within your comfort zone. It was not comfortable for me to make daily videos on YouTube back in 2017. But when I started making them, it then became my comfort zone. That's the secret. Once you make the choice to step and expand your comfort zone, it then becomes your comfort zone, and then it doesn't feel so weird. So one of the things you really want to become aware of is, how are you showing up in the world? What is your identity? What values are you living by? How are you thinking, acting, and feeling? What labels have you attributed to your life that do you identify with? You become aware of all of these, and you see that a lot of times these have been on autopilot for a very long time, since a lot of times childhood, and that we just decided this is who we are. And one of the most powerful ways to completely shift your life is to simply expand it and to take action. And there's two main ways. Let me show you. This is like something I've been teaching a lot more recently because it is so powerful, and it's like a very simple way of understanding this. But when you look at this is like your old identity. This is your old comfort zone. Think, feeling, acting equal to that. Sometimes even there's some lower vibrational emotions that may be normalized there, like anger, fear, guilt, shame. And the key, there's two main keys and two ways to really shift your life. One is meditation. Meditation allows you to influence the subconscious mind, which runs 95% of our life. A lot of our subconscious mind was primed from 0 to 8 years old, because when we were that age, we were just absorbing like a sponge our environment. And then on the other side of this is choice. Choice, taking action as a new version of you, having the courage to do so. A lot of times people will try to wait. They'll wait until the fear is gone. They'll wait till they feel better about it. Then they'll take action. The thing is the fear, the way to get through that is through it, not like waiting for it to change. If I would have waited to feel comfortable making videos on YouTube, I still wouldn't have been making videos. But now it's comfortable because I had the courage to go into that. So you can apply this towards any area of your life, by the way. You use the power of meditation, you use the power of choice, and this is what really changes your identity, changes your values, and then you perceive of new probabilities and synchronicities. And if you want a step-by-step process, by the way, in a free video that shows you step-by-step how to create this identity transformation, I have something called the MAP, the Magnetic Activation Process, for activating this version of you. It's completely free. You can go to aarondowdy.com/map, M-A-P, or click the link in the description box below. And there's a training video there, and there's also like there's like a PDF there that shows you step-by-step how to do that. So go to aarondowdy.com/map to check that out. And then also, there's a video right here that shows you how your comfort zone is your identity, and I go deeper on all of these concepts right here.